Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Lots on tap, stacked program for you this evening. We have Kevin Michalizzi in Crimea, who will be joining us very shortly to update us on this overnight attack by Ukraine in Crimea, directed at a Russian patrol boat. Will tell you the truth about what happened there. Do prisoners in Canada, serial killers like Paul Bernardo, really have access to a hockey rink to play pickup hockey and a tennis court? We'll get into that. Is medium security prison really like a country club? We'll show you the effects of information warfare on the minds of people and the way they end up reacting or acting on the street. We'll tell you about this plane crash in Nashville that has claimed the lives of, I believe, 5 Canadians. We have a new episode of Maverick Nights, our animated series. This episode titled Mind Control. So stay with me. We have quite a bit in store for you this evening. We'll sell you a ticket for the whole seat. But tonight's episode or installment of Maverick News will be so riveting, you'll only need the edge.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Nights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, first up tonight, this plane crash. Let's talk about that. So, in a heart-wrenching turn of events, the pilot of a single-engine plane faced a chilling reality as he attempted an emergency landing in Nashville. His voice crackling with urgency, he relayed to air traffic controllers his dire situation. Spotting this runway that they had cleared for him to land, yet he was unable to reach it. I'm going to be landing, he said. I don't know where. These were his last words before this inevitable tragedy struck, claiming the lives of all 5 people aboard the plane. The National Transportation Safety Board, an investigator, Aaron McCarter, was able to share details at a press conference earlier today. He has confirmed that among the victims, there were 2 adults, 3 children, all Canadian citizens. This investigation ongoing. Authorities are collaborating with the Canadian government to confirm their identities. So we have questions still unanswered. What led to the crash? We don't know. The investigation is still in its infancy. Crucial details such as the pilot's qualifications and flight experience remain uncertain. This distress call came in at approximately 7:40 p.m. Monday. The pilot, grappling with a failing engine, had already flown over John C. Toone Airport at 2,500 feet. Despite air traffic controllers' desperate attempts to guide him down to safety, the plane continued its descent, its altitude plummeting to 1,600 feet. "I'm too far away," he said on the radio. The pilot says, "I'm not going to make it." And then the plane disappeared off radar, and the plane crashed. We have a video from passersby on the highway who caught the event on video with their cell phones. Here.
Oh, huge fire, huge fire.
More information will be coming out, I expect, over the next 24 hours as we get confirmation on the identities of the deceased. It's Super Tuesday. Voters going to the polls across the United States. So here's sort of a snapshot of what's happening tonight. Super Tuesday is the biggest primary day of the year. What we have here is 16 states and one U.S. territory holding presidential nominating contests today. We have Donald Trump, the former president, looking to further expand his lead in the GOP primary over former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She's still hanging in there. In total, 865 Republican delegates, accounting for 36% of the total delegates in the entire race. They're all up for grabs tonight. Joe Biden will take aim at continuing his quest for the Democratic nomination. Very little opposition there, realistically. The big Democratic machine is in full operational mode, throwing their weight behind the president. It's almost not worth mentioning, given that it's a given, I would say. In total, 1,420 pledged delegates are at stake, or 36% of the total available delegates. 5 states, California, Texas, North Carolina, Alabama, and Arkansas, are holding primaries for key down-ballot races for the House, Governor, Senate, and other local offices. This should be, I think, a pretty late night for those who will be following the results. The first polls of the day opened in Vermont at 6 a.m. Final polls close at midnight Eastern tonight in Alaska. So late night we'll know, I think, results tomorrow, unless, of course, there's a broken pipe someplace and something gets flooded and everything gets shut down and it goes on for days. Oh, these are the primaries, though. Who knows? It's hard to say. You never know. You never know what might happen. It might happen. And you remember the trip to the border with the convoy, Eagle Pass, Texas? Do you remember who was sort of helping to lead that? It was, as I recall, a gentleman by the name of Pete Chambers. Doc Pete Chambers. He was one of the sort of the key figures in all of that. And today he posted a video, very interesting. He was some officers from ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, apparently, he says, paid him a visit. Doesn't sound like Doc Chambers was happy to see them. I just took note of this today. Doesn't like it when alcohol, tobacco, and firearms officers come around to see him. I wonder what they were discussing and why he was on their radar. In any event, he had a message for them, and it sounded kind of confrontational, but I'll let you assess.
Well, little story from this morning before I went to vote. ATF came to visit, had a good discussion with them. We shared niceties and whatnot, who I was, who they were, what they needed, and I helped them on their way. But before they left, I said, you know, this is Super Tuesday, and I believe Texas has a referendum to abolish the ATF. Now they don't, although they should. But I stayed with my story. I said, so y'all might want to be looking for a new job. And we're hiring, looking for a couple of good hands. Go protect the border.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to be thinking about that tonight. Thinking about that deep and hard. What's that all about? I'm just a little Canadian guy up here and trying to make sense of all this U.S. volatility on the political front down there at the border. Trying to just understand all this friction. We got people not liking it when law enforcement comes and pays them a visit. Just sends them on their way. Can't imagine why. Gonna have to check that out. Seems a lot of people losing their minds these days. All across the US of A, all the way to Gaza and back. Here's a video of somebody, I think, not thinking at all. This lady telling a pro-Israel protester who really is just asking or saying that he'd like the 134 remaining hostages being held by Hamas to be released. And this woman comes up to him, screams at him, saying that he should be enraged at the genocide happening in Gaza. I just draw your attention to it because, I don't know, it seems to me that when you're emotional about things, it's hard to keep your head screwed on straight. This is the confrontation.
You should be enraged! You should be enraged! You should be enraged at the genocide that is going on!
Calm down, young lady. You were calm before. You need to chill.
I don't need to chill!
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't! I'm not to chill about what's going
Yeah,
on
you
now! Why don't you tell us, get out of here! Get out of here!
You know, when people have political objectives they want to achieve and they're trying to generate public support for it, you know what they do? They appeal to people on an emotional level. Just saying. Hard to keep yourself grounded and thinking straight when you are emotional. I don't know. I've been there. Like just about everybody, especially over the past 4 years. And now more than ever, we need clear thinking. This guy here, he's thinking the USA is evil. He picked up a meal airdropped on Gaza by the United States, but he'd rather starve than eat Yankee food. Here he is, and this is what he has decided to do with the food, the aid, the humanitarian aid that the United States has delivered into Gaza.
هذه مكانها واحد وحيد. هي المساعدات تنحط بكيس اسود زي هذا، اوكي؟ وبتنحط، ثواني اورجيك وين، وبتركمي في الجماعه اللي زي هذه. هذه
So much for the U.S. aid to Gaza. It didn't work out quite the way some people were planning. So as some people are going hungry in Gaza, other people living a life of luxury, like India's richest son, who met with Mark Zuckerberg, world's richest nerd, to show him his $1 million watch. $1 million for a wristwatch. $1 million for a wristwatch. Zuckerberg says, "Hey, I'm not really into watches, but maybe I am now."
Do you want to relax or want to walk around? We want to walk. We want to walk. Okay, do you have 2 hours? We have sure time. So can I plan it accordingly?
Gotta listen
Sure.
carefully.
Hi.
CFO Meta. Yeah. I know, I told him that already.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, I never really wanted to get a watch, but after seeing that, I was like, you know, watches are cool.
You might want that.
Not that.
Not
but
want that one, but things like
How the other half lives. $1 million for a watch. I guess on the automotive front, Stellantis has announced that it will be building the new Dodge Charger, the electric version, in Windsor, Ontario. They're billing this new vehicle as the world's first and only electric muscle car so far. Several new Charger models, including gas-powered ones, will be produced in Windsor, starting with 2-door versions later this year. The Windsor assembly plant also builds the Chrysler Pacifica minivan. Stellantis has announced a commitment to build additional vehicles at the assembly plant. That coming in an announcement last year. The company is also building a massive electric vehicle battery plant in Windsor in partnership with LG Energy Solutions. Both the gasoline and electric chargers will be built on Stellantis' global large vehicle underpinnings. So this factory will have a flex assembly line that will be able to go between the models depending on consumer demand. So they'll be able to produce more than one type of vehicle on the line at one time. Well, they'll be able to switch from one to the other. So the union is saying this is extremely good news for Windsor, for really Canada. It will ensure job stability at the plant. It will be a big boost to the local, provincial, national economy, and it will also, no doubt, provide positive economic linkages back into the United States because, of course, the automotive supply chain is North American wide, really global, but most substantially and significantly, the linkages between Canada and the United States are most prominent and most important. Last year, Stellantis stopped making the gas-powered Chargers and Challengers. Those, of course, were being assembled in Brampton, Ontario, now moving further south to Windsor. These electric versions, which will be named the Charger Daytona, will come with 2 different powertrain options, one delivering up to 670 horsepower. It will be able to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3.3 seconds. The other powertrain will offer 496 horsepower with a 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds. The 496 horsepower version of the Daytona Charger should have a range of about 510 kilometers on a full charge, while the high-performance version will have a range of about 418 kilometers. The new gas-powered Charger 6-pack will look similar to the electric versions. It will be powered by the new 3-liter 6-cylinder engine offered by Stellantis with twin turbochargers. Standard versions will put out 420 horsepower. There will also be a higher performance version pumping out 550 horsepower. No word yet on fuel economy ratings for those powertrains as installed on the Charger vehicles. The funny thing to me, though, is that on these electric vehicles, they use generated recorded audio or digital audio systems to mimic the sound of an internal combustion engine. So they have what they call a patent pending exhaust system that will give the electric Charger a unique sound, very similar to what you would get with a V8 engine under the hood and the rumble coming out the tailpipes at the back. Sounds very realistic, and it revs up and down as you tap the accelerator, but it's all artificial. It's just there because people are conditioned from over a century of gasoline-powered motoring to hear that engine, and it's a symbiotic relationship that people have when they're driving a car. You get in there, you feel the rumble of the engine, you hear it, you become one with the vehicle. When the audio is gone, when it's missing, it really feels like there's something missing. When you're in an electric vehicle and driving it and you don't have that engine sound, it's a totally different experience. It's more sanitized. You feel more detached. It feels sort of, I would say, artificial, sterile. I like that engine sound, but I'm an old school guy. They're trying to put some character into these vehicles, though, with those sound effects. Other companies do it as well. Jaguar, Hyundai, they're all doing it. In fact, even gasoline-powered vehicles, some of them, many of them, have artificial sound being pumped into the cabin. They've been doing it for a while to just make the whole the sound experience that you have that much more robust. But good news all the way around, I guess, for workers at the Stellantis plant in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and the surrounding communities that have supply plants that feed into it. Good news for the economy, at least in the short term. We'll see what the viability of these electric vehicles looks like in the long run. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, did you guys see this video from the Conservative Member of Parliament talking about the country club-like conditions at the medium security prison where serial killers like Paul Bernardo are now staying? Not all serial killers there, of course, but he was transferred there in a very controversial move that Justin Trudeau, the Liberal government, and Canada's prison system being criticized for. This video was released Sunday by a Conservative Member of Parliament from British Columbia, Caputo. He went in there, went for a tour of this facility, put out this video. In it, he says he actually came in contact with Paul Bernardo himself, Canada's most notorious serial killer. It's a controversial video. The accuracy of some of the statements in it tonight being disputed by Correctional Service Canada. In this video, the Member of Parliament, which I have the video, we're going to run it for you in just a moment. He says that there's an arena there where the prisoners are allowed to play pickup hockey, and in warmer weather, the ice rink becomes a tennis court. Some of these statements being disputed tonight. Let me just check just one detail here on this story. Anyway, I became aware of this video. Well, I wasn't aware of it Sunday, but I became aware of it yesterday. Sharing it with you here now because it is being, well, not all of it, but some points are now being disputed. So let's run the video. You can watch this, and then we'll come back and discuss on the other side.
Guilty all the way down to all.
I came face to face with Paul Bernardo. You will not believe how this guy is living. So for those who don't know, especially for younger people in Canada, Paul Bernardo is the worst of the worst. He was known as the Scarborough Rapist. He did unspeakable sex offenses against numerous women. Ultimately, him and his wife were responsible for 3 young women being killed. One of them was his own sister-in-law. Bernardo was eventually convicted for murder. He's serving multiple life sentences. He was also designated as a dangerous offender, which is the highest designation any criminal can receive in Canada. I'm a former Crown prosecutor, so I've seen a lot of evil in this world, but I can safely say this guy is the worst of the worst. We do not believe he can ever be rehabilitated because his offenses were so bad. Mid-2023, Paul Bernardo had been in maximum security where he belonged for about 20 years. But in the dead of night, in the cloak of secrecy, he was transferred to medium security.
On Friday, news broke that the serial rapist and killer had already been transferred from this Ontario maximum security prison to a medium security one in Quebec.
I've been in a lot of jails as a former parole officer, but I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to see what medium security was really like. So I went to the jail, La Macasa, where Paul Bernardo is incarcerated. I walked in, and the first thing you notice is how big of a property it is. It actually feels like a university campus. If you go to maximum security, it's really confined. There are doors everywhere in maximum security. You go to medium security, it's not really all that confined. It feels like university. It's like you're walking from building to building, just like you're walking from class to class. So my tour begins, and the first place they take me is to Paul Bernardo's unit. And for those who don't know, a unit is essentially a bunch of jail cells. So that's where he lives. We go straight to his cell, and they open the door. He's not there. You could see that he wasn't there, so I asked permission, and I take a step in. And it was really weird. Their margarine containers were drying on the top of his bunk. I'm not sure why. He had these mint chocolate bars off to the side. He had a electric razor. I asked whether he paid for that himself. He did. You could see all these things, and it looked like somebody very ordinary lived in that jail cell, and yet he's a monster. Had to keep on reminding myself that this person did unspeakable things. So I was in there for a couple of minutes. I turn around, and it was unmistakable. It was Paul Bernardo. His hair was still the color that I remember it is being in the photos, but the face was unmistakable. It was him. But just seeing him coming eye to eye with him. I had a physical reaction. Even just talking about this brings back memories. I've dealt with a lot of dangerous people, but I've never looked into the eyes of a serial killer like him. I was struck by his demeanor. He just walked up. What was happening? He wanted to kind of know. He knew I didn't belong, and he was seemingly asking about that. And he said, in French, he said, "Is everything good?" One of the things I noticed, he was taller than I expected, but he was well fed, he's well nourished. I mean, this isn't a guy who looks like he's missing a lot of meals. Gone were the skinny images that we had grown up with in the 90s. This was somebody that looked different. So let's take this back a second. He is a serial murderer, a serial rapist, a dangerous offender. And that's when I started to get angry, because I walked outside and I had a look and I said, "What's that? Looks like a hockey rink." It was. Inmates can go and they can get skates and they can play hockey. There are hockey nets and everything. If you want to play in the evening, there are halogen lights. It looked just like an outdoor basketball court at a community center or at your local baseball stadium. So that's not bad enough. The hockey rink, well lit, actually turns into a tennis court. If that wasn't enough for me to get outraged, while we were walking there, one of the guards commented that Luca Magnotta walked right by me.
Murder and dismemberment of his victim, Chinese student Jun Lin.
He's also alleged to have eaten parts of his victim. Prosecutors say Magnotta killed Jun Lin, then recorded himself having corpse.
So him and Paul Bernardo could actually be playing tennis one-on-one in the summertime. If I wasn't pissed off enough seeing the hockey rink and the tennis court, there was more. The cherry on top was seeing this beautiful gymnasium, and next to that is a weight room, much nicer than I'd say 95% of Canadians have access to. He has a billiards table where he can play pool, and then you walk a little ways, and what do you find? You find a workshop where he can sign out tools, chisels, scissors, hammers, duct tape. One of the worst criminals in Canadian history is actually living better than most Canadians. It's almost like a scene from Goodfellas, but this isn't fiction. He's actually living like this. I once had an inmate when I was walking through a different jail say, all in all, not a bad place to do time. That's how he's probably feeling. I'm not saying that we treat people inhumanely. We're a country of human rights. We're a country where the rule of law prevails, but you don't have a human right to a tennis court. You don't have a human right to a pool table. And you don't have a human right to play pickup hockey when you please. And most of all, one of the worst criminals in Canadian history does not and should not have the right to these things. It shouldn't take an MP having to go into a jail to tell you this. People in the government, they may not want you to know the truth of how animals like Paul Bernardo are living, people who should be in maximum security. And yet, here he is in medium security, living better than most Canadians. I shouldn't even be making this video. Why did it take an MP going into the jail to see what medium security was like for Paul Bernardo? He should have never been transferred out of maximum to begin with. This is just part of the bigger problem of the mess that's become the liberal justice system. We have repeat dangerous offenders who are routinely released on bail. We have sexual offenders who commit offenses against children getting house arrest as sentencing. And now we have the government unable to even manage serial killers in maximum security. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, they don't take criminal justice seriously. We can't forget the victims and all they've gone through and all they continue to go through. But we have to tell the truth on how one of Canada's worst serial killers is living better than most Canadians. After coming face to face with Paul Bernardo, we've done some more digging, and I can tell you there's more to tell. Canadians need to know the truth. Please like and share this video because there's more to come.
So tonight, Correctional Services Canada is disputing that, and they have released some statements to media following up on this story. They say that there is currently, at this time, that there is no hockey rink that is actually operational at that correctional institution, which is located outside Montreal. Now, I did send a message to Frank Caputo. I'll follow up with him again to see if he has any response to that. But just having Bernardo transferred to that facility has enraged many, many Canadians who feel he should still be in a maximum security prison, given that he is Canada's most notorious serial killer. When we come back on the other side of this, Kevin Michelizzi will join us to talk about this attack on a Russian patrol boat and the ongoing efforts by Ukraine to strike back, even as they face supply chain issues that is putting their military at risk and really taking us into a whole new phase of the war in Ukraine. Stay with us.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Kevin Michelizzi, welcome back.
Rick, thanks for having me back again. Seems we're seeing each other way too often these days.
Yes, indeed. The situation in the Black Sea seems to be escalating just a bit. Another ship hit overnight. Bring us up to date on what the situation is with that.
Well, it seems they've been trying to hit the bridge and ships for, about 5 days now. It's a daily or a nightly occurrence, depending on what time of day they decide to strike. But today they had a group of like 8 to 10 drones, sea-based drones, and they attacked the Sergei Kotov patrol boat. It's a large patrol ship. And this ship is really, its sole purpose is to patrol the seas for, protection. But these ships alone are not able to protect themselves. They have no anti-aircraft, no, anti-drone equipment, just a couple of machine guns. So it's like a coastal patrol boat.
Nice.
And, it was hit by several drones, and it did not sink immediately. The ship was, there was a tugboat nearby. They were going to tow it in, but they were waiting for orders from the Black Sea Fleet Command to allow them to tow it in. But due to bureaucracy, it was delayed. A couple of more drones came in to try to hit the ship, but a Mi-8 helicopter in the area took those drones out. But due to the delay, the ship did ultimately sink. So the crew was rescued.
Well, that's a good
They
thing.
al-
So there was the
Yeah.
entire crew rescued, as far as you know. No casualties.
As far as I know, there were no casualties. But at the same time, they were also, they had air defenses near the bridge, taking out drones that were trying to strike the bridge as well. The bridge, I know there were reports in the West. Our colleague Lori Spencer sent me some links to that the bridge had been hit, but in fact, the bridge was not hit. So train traffic was stopped for about 8 hours last night. Car traffic was stopped for about 8 hours during these continuous attacks that were going on from about 1 a.m. to about 7, 8 o'clock this morning. And then they did open the bridge back up.
Well, it is so difficult to know what to believe because, well, here, I'll show you. Here on Twitter, well, X now. I have to say two names every
X
time.
Twitter?
Yes, there you go. So here's a photo that has been making the rounds on Twitter of the bridge hit, but that's an old image. That's not from...
Yeah, that's last October.
Today, yeah. But that was posted, well, I guess earlier today on a few different social media accounts. And,
yep.
With captions saying the Crimean Bridge has been hit. So I understand.
I can guarantee you that the bridge has not been hit. They did stop traffic, like I say. Longest stoppage that they've had, but it was simply because the drones were coming and coming and coming. And, they did open it up. There were about 300 cars in queue to go across the bridge. They've all gone across. The trains right now, they were delayed 8 hours. Now they're delayed, about 4 hours in their trips altogether.
And this is image or video of what appears to maybe be the ship being hit from a distance.
Yeah, and you can actually see the bridge in the background there. And you can see the air defense going off up there.
Mm-hmm. And there's the explosion.
Yep.
So that ship worth, I'm seeing reports about $63 million.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably pretty close.
Wow.
Of course, when it was built, they didn't spend quite that much on it.
Here's yeah, this is no, there is no other footage. I thought this was additional footage of the ship being hit, but no, we've seen the footage that has been released now. So
yeah,
and even that was, I was trying to be very careful last night when I was reporting on this. I did say there had been a report of an explosion near the bridge. I also reported that we were getting reports that ship may have been hit, but it's difficult to know exactly what's going on over there or anywhere right now, in fact, because the information coming out is so conflicting. You really, I think, at this point have to wait to make sure you're getting it from the right places.
You do. I mean, I got my last report saying that the ship sunk at 8 p.m. tonight, so about an hour or so ago. I've seen reports in the West saying the ship was worth $35 million, that it was the most modern warship equipped with the most advanced technology and weaponry. You know, it's a patrol boat and it has 2 machine guns. So, you know, there's some stretching going on there as far as value and the equipment that the ship carries. It isn't a ship that is meant to, you know, go to war. It's a patrol boat. It's basically a Coast Guard ship.
Right. Just kind of patrol, monitor, surveil, check for threats. That's and it's a little smaller, so it has some speed capabilities, right? So that's what a patrol boat is meant to do. It's like a scout ship, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. And all this happening against the backdrop of information that we became aware of through you yesterday of Ukraine having real serious problems with their supply chain. What are you hearing on your end?
Well, is what I'm hearing is that you know, they had this loss in Avdiivka, and it was kind of an embarrassment to Ukraine. And they, you know, they created some stories about withdrawals on the orders of the commander when in fact the troops had started withdrawing before he told them they could. They are filing criminal cases against the soldiers who left before they were ordered to leave. And the commanders that allowed their men to withdraw, saving their lives. So they're calling them, you know, traitors. They should not have left without orders to leave. But these are commanders who saved their men's lives. And, you know, so they're being treated fairly poorly by their own government. Now, a lot of these guys are, you know, very tied to and stand behind the previous commander. And when he was removed, many of them said that, you know, they wouldn't fight for this new guy. So they're going after all these guys who were loyal to the previous commander and removing them from their posts, which of course is driving down the morale in the Ukrainian troops. And but because their supply lines are basically shot, Russia, as late as you know, this morning, was bombing infrastructure in Ukraine, which is rail lines and roads that they're bringing supplies in on. So they're short of heavy weapons. There's not enough ammunition for their artillery. The artillery is short. Their air defenses and their air defense missiles, they do not have enough of. Their electronic warfare systems, they have a shortage of. And they even have shortage of fuel and spare parts. So they're complaining to neighboring NATO countries that they need to get equipment repaired. But since they don't have the guys or the parts that can repair them, they have to ship this equipment to countries like Poland, and they have to be repaired there and shipped back. So it creates a big delay for things. You know, they're claiming they have a shortage of UAVs. They did lose a big factory back a couple of weeks ago that we talked about. They don't appear to be having a great shortage of UAVs, but it seems like maybe they're using a majority of them to attack Crimea, mainly for the propaganda again. It's, you know, they need to show these wins against Russia to be getting money and support from the United States. And they have to get the support from the United States to get it from Europe. And so they need to show that they have some wins. And unfortunately for us, Crimea tends to be a relatively easy target.
Yeah, it is a public relations target as well, because that bridge, it was for I think Vladimir Putin a source of pride because when the bridge opened, he was there.
Yeah.
He took part in the ceremony to basically cut the ribbon and declare it
First
open.
one who drove across it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So I certainly understand the public relations value in it. Is there, there has to be some strategic value as well. I'm seeing that Russia is engaged in building or trying to at least improve a rail line as an alternative route for transportation in the event that they do lose the bridge. So they're thinking ahead in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And that bridge, what does it connect? Just so you can explain to people its geographic importance.
The bridge connects the easternmost end of the peninsula to mainland Russia in the Krasnodar region. So it's 19 kilometers, about 8 miles long. And, as far as militarily, it really has no strategic value at all. The fighting isn't going on in Crimea. They can haul stuff here on ferries or by, supply ships, or, most of what they're sending is going from mainland Russia to the front, which is up over the top of the peninsula. And they do have a land route there already. They've got a highway there, and they're actually increasing that to a super highway, much like the Tavrida that they built in Crimea. And they're running this new rail line. They started that, last week, and that will actually cut the time to go from the mainland to Crimea from Moscow by a couple of hours. So, that could be a benefit for them as far as supply lines, because it's up where they need that equipment and where they need that ammunition. But the Crimean Bridge, it's really just a supply line for consumer goods for the peninsula, and, for people to be able to easily go back and forth. For us to drive up and around by the land route to get to Krasnodar, it takes us an extra 4 to 5 hours to drive that. So it's a convenience thing. But at this point, it's no great strategic value other than, like you say, the pride that Putin has in it. And, if they do take it down, it would probably, hurt some morale of citizens of Crimea.
And there's symbolism there. It's showing that Crimea is part of Russia. That's the symbolic value of it. Yes. And,
but to take that bridge down is going to be extremely difficult. I mean, we have the leak of the Germans planning to supply long-range missiles to take the bridge out. And in that conversation, they discussed that 20 of those missiles won't be enough to take the bridge down. They can damage roadway, but it only takes the Russian Federation a month or two to restore the roadway. And they've typically only been able to take half of it out, so they run traffic in one lane in each direction on the other side. But they say that it would take more than 20 of these missiles to be able to actually take the bridge out and put it out of commission totally.
That recording has become a focal point of controversy. Politically, I see this recording that was leaked as being very problematic for Germany. It shows that NATO is maybe more involved in this conflict than they want the public to know.
Yeah, and it also shows that Germany wants the appearance of not being involved. They want the US and Britain to actually be the guys to, fire the missiles from Ukraine, the, ununiformed guys that are there that aren't really there. And, and the US and Great Britain are supplying all the intelligence for these other strikes anyway. Now, this week, Ukraine has made an attempt just a couple of days ago, 11 missiles going towards the bridge. They were all shot down by air defenses. And they, at the same time, shot, I don't remember, was 8 or 10 at Sevastopol, and they were shot down over the peninsula as well. So, getting those missiles to the bridge is problematic because they do have it so well defended, and they show up on radar, which drones don't. But the drones aren't big enough that they're going to be able to do much but damage the road surface again.
Yeah. And you've talked to us before, and maybe you can just go over again briefly the kinds of improvements to the defenses that have been put in place to protect the infrastructure there in Crimea, and specifically around the bridge. What kind of tactics and technology are they using?
Well, they can flood that bridge in fog in just a few minutes. So that's the first thing they do, is they fire up those fog generating trucks and they drive them across the bridge. They have them stationed, along the bridge. So they can cover it very quickly. And at the same time, they use signal jamming technology. They take out the cellular service. They take out the GPS service. So the drones are basically flying blind. They can't pre-program the locations by GPS to actually get to the bridge. And then, of course, they've got air defenses all over the place. And they're movable air defenses, so they aren't positioned in one spot where Ukraine can, fly some dummy drones or dummy missiles over, get their location, and know that they're going to be there the next day. These trucks move around often, and the radar systems are truck mounted as well. They do have some permanent installations, in various locations. But, it comes down to, it's really that propaganda factor. If they can say, we took down the bridge, they can also say, gee, we can also take Crimea back. Now, a few weeks ago, we had the crazy talk that maybe they would go in and attack Yalta as a city and take the city. And Yalta would have no strategic importance to them. It's a tourist city, no military there, but they would be surrounded on three sides by military and the Black Sea Fleet on the seaside. So they literally have no way to go in and take that city without going through the Russian armed forces. It would have to be something like paratroopers dropping in and they would immediately be surrounded. So things like that are just crazy talk.
So we've seen Zelensky even acknowledge that they do have supply chain issues, resource issues. We've seen confirmation that the loss in Avdiivka was the result largely of supply issues. They don't have enough munitions, enough of anything.
Yeah.
This indicates that maybe we're, entering a new phase of this conflict, maybe even the end phase. What kind of analysis are you getting from your sources over there?
Well, what I'm getting on this side is they do not think they will be able to maintain fighting for more than the next month or so. There's, what I'm hearing is around May. They're retreating from a lot of places right now. They've lost all their heavy fortifications that they had been building for the last 10 years. And as they're losing them, they're trying to dig in more defensive lines, but Russia just isn't giving them the time to create good defensive lines. And, the men are refusing to fight. There's more and more men refusing to even be, sent to the military. They're fighting back on the streets when they're served with their summonses to show up for, the recruitment center. And, I just don't know what they're going to do. Last thing I heard out of Ukraine from a reliable source was that they have a good amount of troops to defend with, but they don't have the weapons to give them. And if they were going to try to take any land back or push the Russians back, they would need both equipment and men. So it's a shortage on both sides.
I've seen.
No, they did have a win this week. They, had some drones and missiles going over the peninsula. I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. It happens so often now. But some of the stuff was shot down, and it destroyed part of the Tavrida Highway. So they blocked this new Tavrida Highway for about 10 hours. Repaved it, reopened it back up. So it was a minor thing. Now, that originally was reported by Ukraine as a major strike on a major city and a major ammo depot, but they basically destroyed a lane or two on the highway outside of Feodosia, which is the same area as the bridge and the ship. So it's been a constant attack in this one direction.
So I've said, and I'm just a layman, but it seems to me the Ukraine is getting into a situation where they will need to resort to, and I think they will, to more, and I don't know if this is exactly the right phrase or descriptive term, but more guerrilla style warfare tactics, where it's kind of like pinpoint here and a strategic strike there, instead of these full on head-to-head confrontations where you're seeing soldiers destroyed in a meat grinder, because that's the kind of warfare that you can wage without a lot of resources. And I think they'll need to resort to that, hoping that the aid is finally approved from the U.S. side that seems to be delayed, and then subsequently maybe get more aid in from Europe as well. But time is not on Ukraine's side at this point.
Right. And we're seeing more of that guerrilla warfare going on here. I saw, just as I was coming up to the studio, a report of a major fire that was caused by arson up in mainland Russia. Now, they claim it was a neighbor who had a fight with another neighbor, and, but you have to question with the number of them that occur these days, how much of that is truth and how much of it is covering the fact that, it's some of this guerrilla warfare. There's just too many of these fires that are of unknown origin. We have arrests quite often here on the peninsula. We had an arrest earlier today of a woman who was receiving weapons and explosives from the Ukrainian Secret Service to be used for terrorist attacks in Crimea. Yesterday, we had a couple of arrests like that. So they're arresting these people all over the place. But, it seems to be so pervasive, it likely, they aren't going to get them all.
Yeah. So it's just a race against time for Ukraine. They need to hold on and hope that Biden comes through. But the U.S. administration seems to be fairly incompetent, to be blunt. And we're seeing now Victoria Nuland is preparing to step down. In fact, here I'll bring up the news release from the U.S. Department of State. And right there, Victoria Nuland has let me know that she intends to step down in the coming weeks as Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. And this is from Antony Blinken at the U.S. Department of State. So they're saying she's retiring, but if you read between the lines, I think there's more to it than that. What's your assessment?
Well, she was in line for the Assistant Secretary of State, and she really wanted that position, and Biden passed her over and put somebody else in the slot. So I think there's some hurt feelings there, and it's like, well, okay, then I'm going to quit and I'm not going to help you anymore. It could also be them pushing her out because she's a little too anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine. Let's give money and destroy Russia. And I could go that direction if the Biden administration's real goal is to start looking for a good way to get out of supporting Ukraine without saying, gee, we failed. So this would be a good move. Start with getting rid of her and start backing some things up. Biden's been playing the, gee, we're giving humanitarian aid to Palestine and the Gaza Strip by, dropping aid in the sea off of the coast and letting it float in. And, some things like that. He's pushing, gee, I want a peace agreement by Monday. And, they issued a peace agreement and Israel agreed to it, but Hamas didn't yet. So I think Biden is looking for ways to get out of multiple conflicts at this point. I think the people of the United States are tired of it. I think people in Europe are tired of being U.S. puppets. I don't know where Canada stands on all of it, but I have the feeling they're getting a little tired of it all as well. And, Ukraine is just a big thorn in the side at the moment. Newland went in there. She dealt with this commander-in-chief deal, trying to resolve that. It's been, more embarrassment. And I think the blame is being put on her for all that. But it's political objectives at this point. It's not military objectives they're trying to win.
Yeah, she's supposed to be a diplomat, but she has not ever really been very diplomatic. She has been a war hawk. She really has been. Blinken as well. And these policies have led us to this point. If there was a lot more diplomacy and less aggressiveness, I think maybe we wouldn't be facing these diplomatic, or shall I say, political disasters and these wars that we're engaged in right now. So I think you may have hit the nail on the head there. This seems to me as well, this resignation or retirement seems to indicate that the Biden administration might be looking for an off-ramp in what is an election year.
Yeah, well, when the guy named Not Committed is winning the election for the Democrats over there, it says a lot.
Very strange election cycle this time. I don't know. It's you have a president who is so out of touch, literally, with reality that you have an independent candidate in Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who the other day just demanded that he provide some sort of proof that he has the cognitive abilities to lead the American people. In other words, prove that you're still lucid.
Yeah.
So
I'm surprised nobody's demanded that of Trump, but he seems to be going, gangbusters out there on the Republican side. And some of the reports I've been hearing from contacts in Ukraine is that one of the things they're doing right now is they're trying to wait and see how this Super Tuesday comes out and see if Trump comes out as the next, assured Republican candidate. And if he is, that there are a lot of the politicians in Ukraine that want to go to the negotiating table at that point, because they know that the support will dry up and Trump will, play nice with Russia some more.
It's interesting to see how much power really Trump still has, how much influence over the political process he still has, even though he isn't the president, because, it's that MAGA Trump influence over everything that is also resulting in the delays for the additional funding for Ukraine. They've tied that to the situation at the border, where we just had this new court ruling saying that the state does have the jurisdiction to go ahead and start arresting people who are identified as possible illegal migrants coming in and not have to rely on the federal government. It's turned into a showdown between the states who are supporting Texas and the federal government over who actually has jurisdiction over the border and security. It's the strangest thing, and Trump's a major influence in that.
Yeah. You know, they have a constitutional
crisis. Is what
crisis,
it's turning into. Yeah.
But there is a you know, one of their I don't know, it's one of the amendments they've got where the states can actually by a majority vote say that they're throwing the federal government out of control and taking back control.
Yeah.
And this is something that was growing while I was still living over there. And they needed, I don't remember the exact numbers, but like 2/3 of the states, and they had about 50% of them signed up for this.
Yes.
So, you know, the federal government's going to have to do something, or the states are going to take control back from them.
Yes, and we're seeing that almost half the states do support the Texas position on the border. Immigration has become perhaps the number one issue in this election cycle as these guys race toward the White House. I don't know where that leaves the country. It's very volatile. As we get into the summer, I think you're going to see real unrest. Like we've seen buildings burned. We've seen riots in the streets. We've seen mass arrests. We've seen police not do anything to people in some cases who are out there causing all kinds of problems. This time around, I think, given the current state in the United States, the volatility, it's going to make the problems we've seen in the streets before look like a Sunday school picnic.
I agree. It's, you know, and there's a lot of these groups out there who are driving people to, you know, do things they wouldn't normally do. Excuse me. You know, people have to be careful where they're being led. You know, give some thought to what people are saying to them. Think what makes sense. You know.
Well, when it comes to politics, the people who are trying to generate support for their movement, they generally will appeal to people on an emotional level. And when you get people enraged, they stop thinking rationally and they can easily be led astray. So yes, I mean, that's a message that I share with people here all the time. Think. And if people are telling you not to think, but you just act out of emotion, you better just stop and take a deep breath before you do anything at all, or you might end up in a heap of trouble. And speaking of trouble, we've got, I guess, a couple of military leaders on the Russian side who are, I guess, being targeted by the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, the head of the Black Sea Fleet has had an arrest warrant issued for him. I don't know much more, or the International Criminal Court. And I don't know what for, but, you know, also the head of aviation of the Russian Air Force.
Right. So there are some reports just coming out from The Hague, Netherlands. Pretrial Chamber 2 of the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Russian long-range aviation commander Sergei Kobelash and Black Sea Fleet commander Viktor Sokolov for their involvement in crimes in Ukraine, the court's website reports. According to the court, Sergei Kobelash and Viktor Sokolov are responsible for the following war crimes: attacking civilian objects, causing excessive incidental harm to civilians or damage to civilian objects, and a crime against humanity in the form of inhuman acts under Article 7 1K of the Rome Statute.
Yeah, and you know, my view of this is it's their way to get out of the fact that, you know, recently they, denied Ukraine's claims of genocide and, you know, inhuman treatment in this special military operation. So it's almost like they had to come back and say, well, you know, shame on you guys, because they're the ones in charge of shooting the missiles from ships and airplanes. But what are they actually striking? They're striking electric plants, which are a valid military target. They're hitting train tracks, which are valid military supply lines. And much like Ukraine does, if there's some soldiers in an apartment building shooting at them, they're going to shoot back. You know, it's something people don't think about. But if you've got, you know, 12 troops of country A in a civilian hospital or apartment building or school shooting at country B's men, that then becomes a valid military target. So I see this as, you know, just a, you know, they looked soft in that denying Ukraine's case, so now they have to come back with something hard again. And these guys probably couldn't care less.
And the International Criminal Court, it has really, I would say, pretty limited jurisdiction. I mean, I think there are, how many countries belong to the ICC? Is it 120, 123, something like that?
Something
Russia,
like that.
You know, I think
Russia
Russia
does
has,
not.
right, they're not part of the ICC. They
The
withdrew
United
their
States
signature,
isn't.
right? The ICC States is not a member. So they can charge them. They can say that, you know, they're wanted, but they really just don't truly have jurisdiction to make arrests and effect prosecutions, in my view.
George Bush has, you know, had a criminal arrest warrant against him for how many years? Doesn't seem to affect him at all.
Right. I know Canada is a member of the ICC, and I know that there are political groups, I believe pro-Palestinian groups actually, that are pursuing charges through the ICC against Justin Trudeau. And because Canada has signed on to it, he might actually be held accountable for his actions if found guilty. So that's a totally different scenario when you voluntarily submit to the jurisdiction of an international body like the ICC, giving up your sovereign immunity through the sovereignty of your own nation state. You've thrown yourself upon the mercy of the ICC, the International Criminal Court. So Trudeau's position is entirely different. But Putin, Biden, Trump, those guys, they're saying, no, we're immune because we have our own nation states and we don't recognize any authority that the ICC has.
Well, and if you look at Trudeau, if they do charge him, are they going to come to Canada and arrest him?
That's a really good question, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I really view this court as having the same authority and power as the UN. You know, the Security Council is a joke because no matter what goes in front of the Security Council, either Russia or the United States is going to veto it. So then it goes to the General Assembly. The General Assembly gets a majority of the countries to say, yes, this is what needs to be done. And then that's the last you hear of it. Nothing's ever done.
Well, you know, this is a situation with Trudeau that he's like so many of the neoliberal woke progressives in this country. They engage in so much virtue signaling that that's what signing on to the ICC was, in my view. And in the case of Canada, oh yeah, we support the ICC. We're going to sign this. This is a great thing. You know, it's another step toward globalism, and we support the international rules-based order under the IC blah blah blah, right? So they sign on to this court and saying, "Oh yes, we're very supportive, and whatever this court rules, we will abide by." But now that would really be put to the test, wouldn't it? If these charges that are being leveled against Trudeau and the Liberal government here in Canada through these pro-Palestinian political organizations, if they go to trial, would Trudeau then say, "Well, you know, I signed on. We signed on as a government here, so I have to take whatever the ruling of the ICC comes up with. I have to abide by it. So if they say I have to go to jail, or if then I guess I'm going to jail." It really puts it to the test. I suspect that it's toothless. I think that it is all virtue signaling. I don't think that. Even though Canada is a member of the ICC, I think if push comes to shove, he'll try to hide behind Canadian sovereignty and say, "Oh no, you can't touch me. I'm Canadian. We don't recognize that." Oh well, we'll see.
Well, has George Bush been to Canada?
That's a good question. Has Bush been to Canada? When? I'm going to Google that. When was the last visit by George Bush to Canada? George W. Bush was in Canada November 30th to December 1st in 2004. And that's the last time.
Okay, so let's see when he got a warrant from the International Criminal Court. Criminal Court. So I don't see the date here, but I would venture it was 2009. Okay, so he hasn't been to Canada since.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he did go, if Canada would arrest him.
That's the other question, right?
You know,
Yeah.
Putin was going to go to the BRICS meeting in South Africa, and the South African president said, "I'm not going to arrest him." And then he got pushback from his opposition party saying, "No, we're members, so you have to." And I don't think that was ever resolved, other than the fact that Putin said, "Well, I'm not going anyway."
It creates real conflicts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Moral and legal. And it puts the ICC to the test. It puts the moral conviction of these world leaders to the test. How much is virtue signaling? How much is real?
Yeah. It all comes out of the UN, and I think I think their time has come to go with NATO the way of somewhere else.
Yeah, it does show that, I've said for a long time NATO is a big sort of part of the problem. They sit there, they have these long meetings, they come up with these resolutions, and then in the end, nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems like such a waste. But these are, the UN, it goes back to the League of Nations and this vision of the future where you have all the nations of the world working together in what really is sort of a globalist vision to prevent war. But in reality, it has turned into this political omelet of lumps and weird. I don't know. I'm having trouble coming up with the proper metaphor off the top of my head, but it's a mess, is what it is. It doesn't result in has not resulted in any resolutions to any of these issues. We still have the conflict in the Middle East. We still have the conflict in Gaza. It hasn't solved any of that. In fact, right now it seems to be at as bad as it has ever been since World War II.
Well, there's still a conflict in Serbia and Kosovo. A breakaway region supported by NATO under orders from the UN, which never approved going in there in the first place. So, it's just, I don't know, too much applying pressure from different sides to get what they want. You know, Yugoslavia, NATO had no authority to go in there from the United Nations, and they decided, oh, we're going to do it anyway. They go in, they break the country up. They actually were charged by the UN's International Court of Justice again. And, you know, what happened? Nothing.
And what's the
you
point?
Know, they still have NATO troops in there.
And what is the point in a body like the UN if you have, you know, two countries like Russia and the United States, which sometimes are at odds with each other on policies, and they have veto powers. So it doesn't, like, all these other countries can vote for something, but if the United States doesn't see eye to eye with what it is, then they just say no, and then it's rejected anyway. And Russia has the same power. I just don't.
And China.
Yeah. So it's just, what's the point in going through the exercise if the real power really lies with the superpowers anyway? That's the political reality. That's political realism, right in your face. So the UN, it's toothless.
It's kind of, you know, kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
Well, we're getting to some deeper discussions on politics here. Anything else we haven't touched on here with regard to the situation in Ukraine and Russia?
No, I don't think so. I think we just need to kind of sit and watch what's going to happen over the next few weeks. I think that'll be pretty telling. The political situation in the United States shouldn't drive this conflict, but is and will. So I think we just have to wait and see. You know, people where I am, we've gotten used to the drones and the aircraft guns going off all the time. It's, you know, part of normal life and not a big worry.
Well, no question, the developments we've seen just over the last week indicate we are entering a new phase in this conflict in Ukraine. Today, the announcement from Victoria Nuland that she's stepping aside, that signals maybe a change in policy direction or policy strategy coming from maybe the Biden administration, which I think is actually a sign of hope, because, you know, I'd like nothing more than to see the conflict come to an end so that the killing stops. I
saw Lloyd Austin is under questioning about the fact that he keeps disappearing for medical treatment and telling nobody about it. I think his career is short-lived as well.
Yeah. And I think Biden is probably, or at least the people pulling the strings behind the scenes, are looking for solutions to not just the war, but the public relations disaster they have on their hands as they start to get into the nitty-gritty of this presidential election cycle. So, Kevin, we're going to have to keep an eye on things very closely in the weeks ahead, especially over the next month, and we'll continue to rely on you to keep us updated.
Well, I'll keep letting you know when I see things.
All right, and until your next visit, please tell people again how they can find your work so they can follow you.
You can find me on YouTube at American Crimea. And from there, you can get to anything that we produce. So thank you for having me, Rick.
All right. Our privilege, sir. And folks, we will be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back. Apparently there was no audio when I was just on previously. That's what that phone call was. So I appreciate that. And I'm just going to check in the chat and make sure everybody can hear me. Can you guys hear the audio now? I hope. I'm going to assume that you can. I'll get the response in the chat fairly quickly. Anyway, I'll proceed here. Excellent, thank you. Okay, positive on the audio in the chat. So I saw a couple of comments about last night's show in the chat. I did dip in for just a moment a while ago, and I noticed a couple of people making comments about John. And I know that, some skepticism there. I understand, especially the reference to April 1st, April Fool's Day. However, I will say this. When someone comes to you with a problem, when they say that they are thinking of taking their own life, you have to take it seriously. The story that he laid out, I listened very carefully. The details with regard to the MAID program, everything that he said is accurate. He clearly has some personal problems, and my heart goes out to him. Now, other people last night were attacking the program, as you saw. We're getting attacks from outside. I guess it comes with the territory. So we'll roll with the punches. I'll tell you this, though. It doesn't matter what we do on this show. And I don't even like to call it a show because it is a news program that deals with news and current affairs. I prefer to call it a program rather than a show. A show is like entertainment. And while there are some entertainment aspects to this, it is really news-based. So I try not to think of it so much as a show. However, with regard again to last night's program, it was as grassroots as you can get. And that's okay with me. What I learned about journalism very early on, and that I still hold close in terms of my approach to journalism, is grassroots, real people, real stories. That is what really is important. So many other live streamers, podcasts, focus on trying to get the big name, the big interview, the celebrity, the newsmaker, the huge politician, the interview with Vladimir Putin, or the interview with Justin Trudeau, or Pierre Poilievre, or Jordan Peterson, or Joe Rogan. That's all fine. And there is absolutely a place for that, and that generates a lot of interest. But those guys live and breathe and survive for and on clicks, ratings. They do things to get people to watch or to get people to vote for them in the case of politicians. And what I learned early on, what I was taught by veteran journalists, like real journalists, news reporters, was that politicians are largely self-serving. It was true then, it is more true than ever right now. So what we went through last night with Gina and Sandy and Dragon and John was real. Real stories from real people telling us what their real life experience is like living in our society, in our community today under Justin Trudeau and a Liberal government and the provincial governments that they have and the municipal governments that they have, the economic challenges that they're having, the real down-to-earth true stories about just trying to find enough to make ends meet every month, to find enough to eat. Now, you can go and watch other programs, and sometimes we have big-name people on this program too. Last night's show maybe doesn't generate the giant ratings that an interview with some big-time live streamer or celebrity would, but that's okay with me. Because this platform is also about giving voice to the voiceless, giving other people, giving people who would otherwise never have an opportunity to share their stories an opportunity to share them. It's called humanizing the story. Especially in times of war, that's needed more than ever right now. When you have a government that wants you to go kill someone for you, what they need to do is get in your head, if you're a soldier, and convince you that the enemy is not human. It gives you license to go and commit an atrocious act and take someone else's life for them. They'll tell you that you're doing it for you or for some cause. Maybe that's true, but it's also for them, regardless of what side you're on. It's always been the case. And to get people to do that, they have to dehumanize the enemy. They do it with propaganda, conditioning, education, information warfare. What I do is the opposite. I get people to understand stories. I try to get people to understand stories, understand the realities of situations by humanizing the story, by injecting real people into the story, bringing real, everyday people into the story and showing their personal account, having them share their stories. There's nothing more powerful than that. There was nothing more powerful than what we went through last night with our guests, talking about inflation, trying to survive in 2024 on meager government assistance, lack of opportunity for jobs, living with disabilities, and just existing in a state of despair in the case of John, who obviously has had a very rough life. Now, maybe you believe, maybe you don't believe everything somebody says. But clearly, our friend John has some challenges, one way or another. And so, my heart still goes out to him. And I'm glad that he was able to help us understand his situation, because by sharing his story, I think it helps other people, helps all of us understand, helps me understand why someone might choose medical assistance in dying. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after April 1st. That'll be a telltale sign, won't it? But regardless, it was a worthwhile exercise. And that's what journalism is really all about. It's what it should be about. Not just political activism. It's about helping people. As a journalist, I am here to serve as the eyes and ears of the public, and also in this new medium to provide a platform for the people, for you guys. That's what it's about. Now, we have coming up a new episode of Maverick Nights. This new episode is titled Mind Control. So we'll share that with you in just a moment. Don't go away. More news. I'm going to queue up a couple of little clips here, and we'll have that ready to go, and then we're going to get into this new episode of Maverick Nights on the other side of this.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
We provided coverage last night on that Durham by-election in Canada, the federal riding. The final results finally came in. We did forecast, we projected, declared the winner to be Jamal Giovanni, conservative in that riding. Not surprising, the outcome really predictable. However, overall, it was, as I also predicted, an important by-election for the entire country. It gave us a snapshot of the political mood nationally through the window of this local riding and the voting that took place. 57% of the voters who turned out voted conservative. Jamal Giovanni not showing up for any debates. As far as I know, he didn't even grant any interviews to any media along the way. If he did, it wasn't very many. I know that he turned down mainstream media interviews, did not participate in our candidate's debate, but rode this wave of conservative popularity in a conservative stronghold to victory. Didn't have to work for it. It was handed to him on a silver platter. Then in his speech, his victory speech, referred to the Liberals as a bunch of elites. We'll see how he performs as a member of Parliament, and we'll see how accessible he is to media and questions. Obligated he is, as a member of Parliament, I would say, to take questions from media and the public. In a very volatile political environment he will find himself in. The Liberals taking in 22% of the vote, and then the votes were scattered beneath that with the other parties. NDP pulling up third place. And we had the centrist party, the People's Party of Canada. I think they came in with somewhere around 5% of the vote. I think that was an increase over what they had in the last federal election when former Conservative Party of Canada leader Larrin O'Toole held that riding. He stepped aside. That's what created the opening and triggered this by-election in the riding of Durham, which is in the Greater Toronto area. There was an independent candidate, a rhinoceros candidate, and the United Party of Canada also fielded their candidate. The leader of the party, this newly minted party, Grant Abraham, ran there. Did score some points on the old scoreboard there in his first outing as a candidate, and in this first test for the United Party of Canada. We'll see how they fare in the upcoming election. They're hoping to field about 250 candidates across the country. Disappointed I was, though, to see Jamal Giovanni just not even have to work for it. Would have been, I think, a healthier exercise had he been required or felt the need, the necessity to get involved and engage with the public, even through the media. In a democracy, we need that, especially now. Tough issues out there. But he just played it safe. He knew he had it in the bag. Didn't have to do anything. Just ride the wave, the blue wave, all the way to Ottawa. Get himself elected a second time. Might even get himself a federal MP pension. We shall see. So all that was going on. Super Tuesday again today. Voters going to the polls. I'm seeing, there will be coverage out there. We're not going to stick with the coverage all night long because this is going to be a real long night. We'll pick up analysis on that tomorrow. We'll see how all that works out. Social media outage. That's been a big story today, to say the least. Meta owned Facebook Messenger and Instagram, had the whole world scratching their heads as social media users on those platforms faced a colossal blackout. You heard it right. Over 500,000 users found themselves locked out of these social media juggernauts. It marks one of the biggest hiccups for social media platforms like that in years. It wasn't just them in the digital doghouse, though. We had other platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube. They're all caught up in a bit of a glitch, too. This glitch fever that took over social media platforms on a smaller scale involving those other companies, though. Down Detector, the go-to site for tracking web outages, was buzzing with reports of service problems across Europe, Asia, the United States. It all kicked off around 10:20 a.m. Eastern Time. A lot of people speculating, jumping straight into the conspiracy theory realm, saying it's like a trial run for the upcoming election because this is Super Tuesday. Think what you will, analyze it the way you want. I have no idea. Now, we do know that by 2 p.m. Eastern Time, most of Meta's apps were back on track. Most of the others weren't far behind, coming back online, following suit a little later in the day today. Meta's spokesperson, Andy Stone, actually had to go to his X account to deal with some of these pending issues surrounding this outage. He admitted, quote, "Earlier today, a technical issue caused people to have difficulty accessing some of our services. We resolved the issue as quickly as possible for everyone who was impacted, and we apologize for any inconvenience," end quote. And hey, if you've been banging your head against the wall trying to get into your Facebook or Instagram account today, remember you're not alone. The outage blues hit hard, sparking a frenzy online and even leading to speculations about a possible cyber attack ahead of the Super Tuesday presidential primaries, just like I said. But despite all this chaos, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency reassured us. They say they found no election shenanigans nor any malicious cyber activities tied to the blackout. So rest assured, the government says it wasn't really anything to do with Super Tuesday. I'm sure you all believe them. Now, this blackout wasn't just your run-of-the-mill hiccup. It's been dubbed one of the longest since 2021, when Facebook and Instagram famously went missing in action for over 6 hours. And to add salt to the wound, Meta shares took a dip today of 1.5%. Elon Musk couldn't resist poking fun at that. He took to Twitter, now known as X, and poked fun at Meta in the comments. So Down Detector's numbers say that over 566,700 reports of Facebook outages came in, with a whopping 75% screaming about login issues. Instagram wasn't spared either, with over 85,000 users sitting there twiddling their digital thumbs. Was it a prelude of things to come in this election cycle? Who knows? Things seem to be back online now, but as much as things are back online, the world remains in chaos, a state of chaos. We've still got these wars raging, and tonight Israel is under attack, with Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel, the Iron Dome in action tonight, taking out some of these rockets. However, we are receiving reports that some of these rockets possibly have penetrated the Iron Dome, and we do have reports, and I'm still waiting for confirmation on these reports coming in, that there may have been some casualties as a result in Israel from the rocket attacks coming in from Hezbollah tonight. And I know that may look like fireworks, folks, but that is not fireworks. That is war. I can't even imagine living like that for years under an Iron Dome with rockets being fired at you like that year after year after year, and just hoping and praying every day that this technology protects you and your loved ones. Could you imagine going to bed at night, tucking your children in, wondering, hoping, praying that if there is an attack, the missiles are taken out so that they don't blow up your child? The world, I wish it could change. But it seems that it just gets worse every day. On all sides. Tonight also, politics on fire in Canada because of Gaza. The Liberals suffering under a barrage of screaming in Toronto, where the York Centre Federal Liberal Riding Association, I'm receiving reports tonight that access to a restaurant there where they were having their riding association fundraising dinner of some kind, that access has been blocked by protesters. Many, if not all, of the participants or people attending that affair were turned away. So most of them, I guess, giving up, deciding that they're not even going to try to get in. Now, I know that some people will shed no tears for these Liberal supporters, given the sagging popularity of the Prime Minister. Nevertheless, it's more proof that we have a very volatile political situation on our hands. The country is deeply divided, not just Canada, but the United States as well, as we spoke about in that interview with Kevin Michelizzi. Now, that gets us to what we've all been waiting for, I think, mostly tonight, the entertainment portion of this news and current affairs program. I'll take another quick break. I'm going to cue it up, and then we're going to come back with this new episode of Maverick Nights. This episode titled Mind Control.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, I'm back, and if you are liking what you're seeing, if you enjoy what we do, if you find it valuable, you can support the program at maverickdonations.com. That's the give, send, go. Or you can support us over here, where most people do, at freedomreporters.com. Now, again, if you support us with a donation of $30 or more, I can send you either a Maverick News t-shirt or an Exile the Knights of Malta t-shirt, like this one. Just tell me what the what size it is that you want, whether you want a news t-shirt or an Exile the Knights of Malta t-shirt. And I'd be glad to send that along at no cost. Just send that out with a $30 donation or more. In any color you want, as long as it's black. Now we also have, do we have some hoodies? I think maybe. Hoodies. So $60 or more and I can send you a hoodie. Or one of these shirts, a Maverick News shirt with the embroidered logo right there. Just like that. So, yeah, I've got these SS t-shirts too for my car show. But over here, people are looking for news stuff, I know. So, freedomreporters.com. That's where you can do it. You can also support us over on Rumble through the Rumble Rants. You can subscribe there too if you find that valuable, and we certainly appreciate the help. It assists us. It helps keep the operation rolling here. It means that I can continue to produce more content every night like you're seeing right now. It helps us pay for all the subscriptions and the bills and the accounts that we have, and there are many of them, from the streaming software to the video production suite that we have to have, the hardware, the subscriptions for the phone system. There are 4 different subscriptions that we need to make all that come together and work. There's more cost even to be on some of these social media platforms, including Rumble. They charge us a monthly fee for these accounts. because of the volume of content that we produce and the traffic that we generate. So there are costs associated all the way down the line. So I really appreciate the support. It means the world to me and everything we're doing here. It also allows us to produce content like you're about to see right now. These semi-animated featurettes that we've been running, these Maverick Nights segments, which I think are pretty fun. And today's episode involves a digital cyber attack on the Maverick Knights headquarters. And the Maverick Knights have to spring into action to prevent this globalist from implementing a devilish global cyber plan to take over the world and unleash a nuclear holocaust. And his plan involves mind control. He manages to infiltrate and take over the minds of a group of Maverick Knights who go rogue and join the dark side. Here it is now, our newest episode of Maverick Knights, Mind Control.
Maverick Knights headquarters under world cyber attack. Infiltrators have seduced a group of Maverick Knights into joining a globalist ring of supervillains to help destroy the Knights and the free world. Sir Richard responds with Special Forces team in their super cyber knight armor, to defend headquarters and prevent a worldwide nuclear holocaust. They locate and destroy the globalist cyber bunker, but villain's leader escapes with the rogue Knights under his mind control. Sir Richard, the leader of the Maverick Knights, stood tall and resolute as he received the distressing news. The very heart of their organization, the Maverick Knights headquarters, was under attack from a relentless cyber assault. The world as they knew it was at stake, and their sworn enemies had managed to infiltrate their ranks. The gravity of the situation demanded immediate action. With unwavering determination, Sir Richard activated the emergency protocol, summoning his most trusted and skilled operatives. Clad in their super cyber knight armor, the Special Forces team assembled, ready to defend their headquarters and protect the innocent lives that hung in the balance. As they ventured into the heart of the besieged headquarters, the team encountered the seduced Maverick Knights, now under the control of the globalist supervillains. These once loyal knights had been deceived, their minds twisted by the villains' manipulative powers. Sir Richard's heart ached at the sight, but he knew that time was of the essence. The Special Forces team engaged in a fierce battle, utilizing their advanced cyber armor to counter the mind-controlled knights. With each clash, they fought not only to protect their own lives but also to free their comrades from the villains' insidious grip. Meanwhile, the leader of the globalist supervillains, a cunning and elusive figure, managed to slip away from the chaos. Sir Richard knew that this mastermind had to be stopped. Otherwise, the world would face an unimaginable nuclear holocaust. Gathering his most skilled operatives, Sir Richard devised a plan to track down the villain's leader and rescue their compromised knights. Utilizing their cybernetic enhancements, the team embarked on a high-stakes mission, following the faint traces left behind by their nemesis. After a grueling pursuit, the Maverick's Knights finally located the villain's secret cyber bunker. Their determination unwavering, they launched a full-scale assault, unleashing their arsenal of advanced weaponry and cybernetic abilities. The bunker crumbled under the relentless onslaught, reducing the villain's base to rubble. However, the leader of the supervillains managed to escape once again, this time with the rogue knights still under his control. Sir Richard knew that the battle was far from over. With the world teetering on the edge of destruction, he vowed to pursue the villain relentlessly until he was brought to justice and his comrades were freed from his malevolent grasp. The Maverick Knights, their spirits unyielding, continued their mission to protect the free world. With their cyber knight armor gleaming in the darkness, they stood as a beacon of hope, ready to face any challenge that came their way. For Sir Richard and his team, the fight against evil was a never-ending battle, and they would not rest until peace was restored.
the end until the next episode of Maverick Nights. Well, friends, that is going to wrap it up for us tonight. Again, thank you everyone for joining me here on the program. And just one more time, if you are inclined, if you liked that and you'd like more of it, you can support the channel at maverickdonations.com or freedomreporters.com. Love all you guys. Really appreciate you spending your time here. It's a privilege, as always. Catch you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.